All right, let's say a Hail Mary. In the
Okay.
name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Hello, and welcome to Mic'd, the official podcast of St. Michael Catholic Church in Gastonia. I am Shane, the Director of Evangelization here at the parish. And today we have a special guest, Principal Michelle Vollman of the parish school. Yes. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited
welcome to your first episode of Mic'd.
I'm very excited. This is very exciting for the parish and even for the school. So thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, we'd love to have you here, and we thought it'd be a good way for you to share a little bit about yourself, what's going on at the school. And I'm becoming more and more aware of how big a deal the school is to the entire parish and to the community, and maybe you'll have a chance to share some of those things with us.
Sure.
How was your Easter?
My Easter was very low-key, which is nice. I attended my first Easter Vigil. I've never been to an Easter Vigil Mass, and that
was my first one as well.
It was absolutely beautiful. I really went in not knowing what to expect. I didn't even know what it was like. So it was one of the most beautiful things I've witnessed, and so it won't be my last. And then I actually got up Easter morning and went to Mass with my parents as well. And then we just had a very low-key Easter on the farm, which is how most of my Easters go. So.
I'll keep my response brief. I shared it on another podcast, but yeah, the vigil really did something to me in the best sense of the word. I mean, I was affected, and so I can't imagine not ever going to an Easter Vigil Mass ever again.
Certainly, yeah, and I tried to go to Mass every day that week leading up to it. It was kind of my last Lenten thing. So I did. I made it to Mass every single day, and I think that kind of added to the impact of it as well. You know, the Thursday Last Supper Mass, and then the Good Friday, and and then the Easter Vigil that Saturday night. So I think it just was so beautiful to see the story unfold, to kind of live it, through the Gospels in real time. So that was very impactful as well, and something that I've never been able to do before either, because I've been in public school, so I haven't had the opportunity to, go to those masses, because quite often we're still in school. So
right, and I think the public schools, they were off when private school was on. I'm not
exactly sure.
So
they had off the week before Easter, and then Easter Monday I think they had off as well. But that was rare. I don't think we ever had that before. I remember always having to. We always had it off after.
I remember when I was a Protestant pastor.
Yeah.
Those weeks when the public school would be off Holy Week. Mm-hmm. And so my children and my wife wanted to do something together as a family on Holy Week. And I was like, well, I'm pretty much booked.
Yeah.
So that was always a little annoying.
Yeah.
Through that. Now, do you have family in the state that live near you?
I do.
Okay.
I only, they live about an hour away from Gastonia. My parents still live where I grew up. It's a little 13-acre farm. Growing up, I always wished that we had neighbors, and, why can't we live in a neighborhood? And but now that I'm older, it's almost like my place of refuge. Like, I love going out there on a Sunday, and it's just so peaceful. It's just a beautiful piece of property. It's so relaxing. And I had a wonderful childhood.
What kind of farm is it?
It's just, they would call it like a family farm, a hobby farm, if you will. Oh. My dad has cows. We have sheep, ducks, chickens, a small pond. But he was a police officer, as his occupation, so the farm was just kind of like a hobby that he had, that all of us had, really, because growing up
did you tend the animals? Do you tend the
animals?
Oh yeah,
chores. Wow. Growing up was definitely a thing. You had to feed the chickens, we had to feed the ducks, and as an adult it hasn't stopped. Sheep, I've learned, are very fragile animals. They need a lot of attention, so quite frequently when I go over there, we're more than likely
they're very skittish too.
Yeah, they're not very friendly. The only ones that are friendly are the ones that are bottle fed, which that happens at least one time a year. Something will happen, and we end up having to bottle feed one of them, and that's when they become very familiar with us, and they let us pet them and stuff. So
my wife and I, we had chickens before having chickens was cool. This is going back about 10 years, and we loved it.
Yeah,
It was just great. I would just go outside and just watch them peck around the yard just as a form of relaxation.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, we have the free range chickens too. The fresh eggs obviously is the biggest thing, but yeah, they eat so many insects. That's a huge plus. And yeah, they're funny. They're quirky little creatures. I remember growing up, my dad would always, when it was time for new chickens, he would order them from a catalog, and they would come in the mail, and the mailman would call my dad and be like, your chickens are here, and you could hear him in the background going like, beep, 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 beep. So we would go and pick up the box of baby chicks and bring them home, and so yeah, that was...
So a farmer, now a principal.
Yes.
The leader of the parish school. Tell me, because I'm curious, I don't know this. How did you fall into becoming the principal of St. Michael?
That is a great question. And I honestly, long story short, it was God. Like, I had no desire to be a principal ever in my life. I did have a desire to teach in Catholic school. So that was always something that
Were you raised Catholic?
Yes. Okay. I was raised Catholic. And for the most part, always... I tried to be very strong in my faith, as everyone, we ebb and flow. But in college, I minored in religion, which to most people, they're like, what are you, why are you doing that? But my whole intent was, I'm going to go teach in a Catholic school one day. So I minored in religion while everyone else, you either minor in another subject area or you minor in something that will help you more in the realm of education, really. So
did you discern that at an early age, like a vocation that you wanted to teach in a Catholic school?
I guess you could call it a vocation. It was just always this kind of underlying desire to do. But then once I graduated, I went to go apply. And I think this was just being new to the world of applying for jobs in schools. I realized that, there aren't that many Catholic schools around. I lived in Wilmington at the time. So they did have one Catholic school. I believe I applied for that. But, as most things, if you apply for a job and never follow up or follow through, you're just one application in, dozens, if not maybe sometimes hundreds. So I applied, didn't hear anything, ended up actually getting a job with the school that I did my internship at through Wilmington.
That was a public school?
It was a public school. And it was a wonderful, it was probably one of the nicest public schools I've ever been to. And they were year-round.
Wow.
Which I would love to do eventually. Honestly, it's a wonderful schedule. I think it's very beneficial for student and student learning. I could get into a whole thing about
I think
that.
I've read some studies that there's such a precipitous decline in comprehension. Well, not but retention is the word I'm looking for. Over 3 months as opposed to every being off for 2 weeks and going back on.
You get 2.5, 3 weeks off every 9 weeks. That's major vacations you get to take, and we still got a fairly long summer. So it was about a month or so, but I just think there's so much more you can do with it. It prevents, I feel burnout from teachers and stuff. Right as you're getting to the point where you're like, I can't handle these kids anymore, you get a break. And I think it reduces the amount of time that parents take out their children and go on vacations on their own, randomly. Hey, I'm going to take my kid out for a week and take them to Disney. And it's why don't you wait and take them in the fall when they're probably nobody else is going? So, I think there's a lot of benefits to that. So,
well, my wife, she's a private school teacher. She's a St. Mark Catholic.
Yeah.
She talks about, she's at the place where all the teachers, this has been, the years felt long, and we're looking to the end of the season. That's interesting. And so you would like to see year-round?
I would like to see year-round. I think it's a tough pill to swallow when people hear the words year-round and they literally think I'm going to school all the time. And so I think you have to reel it back and really kind of introduce it to people almost in slow increments to where you kind of start creating the calendar like that, and then you are like, oh, look, this is what a year-round calendar looks like. And they're like, oh, well, that's kind of what we're already doing. And you're like, yeah, it's not that bad. So we'll see. Obviously all depends on the community and the needs and wants of that. Sure. We would have to be able, I know a lot of parents work a lot, so it would want to be able to support those parents that work, and if they don't have care for their children and stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it's definitely always in the back of my mind of when would be the appropriate time to transition to that. So yeah.
So you're in Wilmington, you're at a public school. You're an intern, or is this a
I was
position?
an intern during college. and then I graduated, they had a long-term sub position for me. So I went, did that until the end of the year. So basically October to the end of the year. They didn't have another position for me, so I was an assistant in kindergarten for a little bit. That was really fun. Let me tell you, being an assistant in kindergarten, I learned a lot. I learned how to utilize an assistant. That was a great learning experience for me. But eventually it got to the point where they still didn't have a full-time opening, and I couldn't live off an assistant salary, so I had to go find something else. So my first real full-time position was at a tiny little school called Warsaw, in Warsaw, North Carolina.
I've never even heard of Warsaw.
No one probably has. The best I sometimes people is it was in Duplin County, so it was near Duplin Winery, which a lot of people still don't really.
What's the closest city?
So here's Wilmington, and here is Raleigh.
So it's in the eastern part of the state.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a 2-hour drive down 40, and it was literally smack dab in the middle. So I was driving an hour down 40 every day to get to. So when I say that I've driven, like, this is not my longest drive that I have to make to a school.
Because you live in Concord.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my drive right now is about 50 or so minutes.
Warsaw, you said?
Yes, Warsaw.
Okay, so you're there. That's your first real job.
I am there, and it was a doozy of a first year. It was a very rural school, and I think from the school that I went to in Wilmington, which was honestly probably one of the top 100 schools in the state, and then I ended up at Warsaw, which was honestly one of the bottom 100 schools in the state. We're struggling so much. I was actually hired under a reconstructing bonus, so they gave thousands of dollars for just these new teachers graduating to come on out and teach. Very, very hard, very, very diverse, mostly African American and Hispanic community, and most of the Hispanic were migrant workers because there was all those farmlands and fields. It was so hard to communicate with my families, and there was not a lot of involved families. So again, I went from a place where you have the huge PTO and everyone's involved to where I maybe met 2 of my parents all year. It was night and day. It was hard. It was your first year of teaching is hard anyways, but that was an especially hard year. So
were you just there the year?
Yes.
Okay.
I couldn't make it more, and I told my parents, I was like, I can't go back, and they were like, well, you have 2 options: you find another job, or you come back home and you figure it out here. And I was like, well, I'll come back home because I don't. Wow. Wilmington didn't have a lot of teacher turnover. Obviously, it's at the beach. Who wants to, who wants to leave? And they generally had pretty good schools down there, so the teacher turnover at the time, it wasn't very big. There wasn't a lot for a new teacher. No one hires new teachers. You don't have experience, which I've always thought was, a funny thing. They're like, oh yeah, your resume is great. It looks awesome. You don't have experience. And you're like, did you see my graduation date? It was like less than a year ago. So that was hard. So I moved back home. And
back to the farm.
Yeah. So one of the 2 times that I had to move back in with my parents, and I applied for a new charter school opening up brand new. They were just still building it. I applied, and got that. That position, teaching 3rd grade. So that was my first.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I didn't ask this. Where did you graduate? Which college?
UNC
Wilmington.
It
was Wilmington.
Yeah. So
okay.
that's I.
So you became then now a 3rd grade teacher.
Yes. My first year was in 2nd grade at Warsaw, and then I went and I became a 3rd, and that's where I stayed. I love 3rd grade. 3rd grade has a very special place in my heart. I think 3rd graders are the best. They're just such a fun age. They come in and they still really kind of need you. They're they love to give hugs, but I think it's also the grade where you can kind of mold them and structure them the most, kind of like how you want. And by the end, they really do have a very strong sense of responsibility, and they're grown up and they're ready. You can see okay, you're ready to go on. And so I've always loved 3rd grade. I think it's the best grade, and that's where I stayed. So I was at Cabarrus Charter Academy for 3 years.
Okay, 3.
Mm-hmm. And that place was a really big blessing. A lot of the friendships I have now, so many teacher friendships. So that was a really great place. And the parents and everything. It was interesting starting a school. going through all the struggles of what a school just getting off the ground goes through.
Were you close to the principal? I mean, at this point, you had no idea you were going to be a principal.
Yeah,
Were
no.
you watching, learning? Or?
A little bit. So, again, as part of the new school struggle, we went through 3 principals in the 3 years that I was there. So, I definitely learned something from each of them. Each of them were extremely different, one from the other. So, that was a lot as well. And so one of my friends and I think I lived with her at the time, and we had a connection to someone at Huntersville Elementary. So they were like, bring in your resumes today. Come to the front office. Don't email them. Don't do anything. Like, come with your resumes and your portfolio. Walk in the door and asked to see the principal, and so we did. We both got to interview that day, and then eventually we both got jobs there. So it was
in Huntersville.
In Huntersville,
okay.
And we were living together, so we joke. We met at the other school. We started living together, and then we both quit and went to the other school.
So then, how long were you in Huntersville?
I was there for 4 years.
For 4 years,
and I probably would have stayed at Huntersville for like. If COVID hadn't happened and everything kept going the way it was, I really saw myself staying there probably for the remainder of my teaching career.
So is that when you saw the job posting? Is that the right word?
Yeah, so okay. COVID happened. COVID is a big...
Which was a disaster for so many people.
For everybody.
For teachers. I couldn't imagine
being
in that environment.
It was so... I mean, like I said, if it wasn't for COVID, I would probably still just be a teacher there. Probably. I don't know. I mean... So, yeah, we went into virtual learning, and, at first it was 2 weeks. And so we're like, okay, 2 weeks, we can handle this in 2 weeks. Once it was clear that 2 weeks, it was not going to be 2 weeks, I really started to question whether or not this was the future for me, because you're like, okay, well, if it's not 2 weeks, how long is it going to be? Is it, 2 months, the end of the year, the next 2 years? And I just knew that I did not like virtual teaching. It was not, very quickly after those 2 weeks, like the micromanaging started, the dilution of what the content we were teaching. And it just, I was very discouraged. I was like, okay, like you trust us enough to do all this stuff in person, and now, we're being micromanaged and having to, do all this stuff online, recording what we're doing, and it was just so much extra work. I was almost like doing more work proving what I was doing than actually teaching students, and so it was hard. And before that, I've been on a pretty intense fitness journey for the past 2 years. So I think even prior to COVID, I had started the process of going to get my personal training license, because I thought that would be a good thing to do over the summer, while I'm not teaching, just to earn some extra money. So I'd already spent hundreds of dollars buying that program, talking to my trainers, buying the test. So I was kind of doing that on the side as well. And then when COVID happened and I knew I didn't want to be a teacher, I was like, well, maybe I'll just forego the whole teaching thing for a year, just focus on personal training and getting into that world until COVID stuff slows down, and I'll make an evaluation in about a year. And then I think it had to have been the end of March, beginning of April. I got a text from my dad one night, and I was like, hey, my friend says that the school attached to the church that he goes to is looking for a principal. Here's the priest's number and email address. Text him and send him your resume. And I literally laughed out loud. I was like, this is a funny joke. And I was like, no, they're going to laugh at me. I haven't had that much experience in the teaching world. I don't have my master's. I have no desire to be an administrator, and he's basically like, you're gonna do it.
Yeah, but you've been teaching 7 years though, or 8 years.
Yeah, at that point I had been
something.
8, and 9+ with my assistant and stuff. So yeah,
I wouldn't say it's no experience.
Yeah, but I guess I just in my mind was like, oh, administrators have to have 20+ and have all these different ranges of teaching. I mean, I'd only taught their grades, so I was like, I don't know anything past their grades. So he was like, you have to do it. So I did it. Just text Father Ross. He was like, hey, this is who I am. I'm sending you an email with my resume. Let me know if you need anything else. And I don't even think I even Googled the school still. I was just like, okay, I'm doing this to appease my dad. I'm not going to, do anything else. And then a few days later, I got a phone call, and it was a random number. And prior to COVID, I wouldn't have answered any random number unless they're in my contacts. But because I had given my number to, kids' parents, and that was, the only way to communicate. I was getting calls from random numbers all the time. So I was like, oh, I should pick this up. It's a kid's parent. No, it was not. It was Karen Menting, who was helping father do the hiring process and just kind of cold calling applicants and having conversations with those. So I don't even really know what the conversation was. We talked a very long time. I want to say almost an hour on the phone. And I think most of her questions were even just about me. It was very candid and relaxed, but as soon as I hung up the phone, I started like crying my eyes out, and I called my parents, and I was like, this woman called me and she's talking to me, and like, what did you do bad? Like, what happened? I was like, no, I think I did really good, and I think that they like me, and I don't know if I want them to like me. And they're like, you need to calm down. So that was kind of when I was like, oh my goodness, like this is real. And then a few days later, they're like, well, we would like for you to come in and have an interview. And so that's when I finally said, okay, I need to look up this school. I need to see what it's about. So looked up St. Michael on the website, took a few notes about them, did the whole interview prep thing, wrote down some questions I had, and showed up to an 11-person interview panel, which is not intimidating at all. On a very hot day in May. And yeah, so did that. Came back one more time for a much smaller interview. I think there's Father Rossi.
Well, at that point, you knew that there was momentum building.
Pretty much, yeah, at that point. And I think at that point, I kind of started to get excited. Like, okay, I think I'm going to be disappointed if I don't get this. Like, I have invested I kind of started thinking about it. I was like, okay, like maybe I can do this. So had that interview. And then I think afterwards, Father Rossi and I just took maybe like a 2-hour walk around Belmont Abbey's campus. And he was just basically telling me about himself and his journey, because he was discerning to be a monk there as well. And then how he ended up at St. Michael. And then I think like 1 or 2 days later, he gave me a phone call. It was at night, and my mom and I were actually doing like a Zoom trivia game with our gym. Our gym was doing a lot of online Zoom things to try to keep community. So we were in the middle of that, and I looked at my phone, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think this is the call. I think this is gonna. And so, so I got that, and it was full steam ahead from there. No looking back really, but I don't think there's any other way to explain it besides God wanted me here for whatever reason. Still trying to figure that out.
I know Father hired me. I could never tell whether I was in the running or not. He did a great job. A great poker face.
Yeah.
Haven't commended him on that.
Yeah,
he did a really good job.
Does. He's very composed like the entire time, which now after knowing him personally, like he's such an excitable person. So it is even more impressive that he can be so composed with someone. Like when you're talking to him, you're like, oh my gosh, like do you hate me or do you love me or like what are your feelings? And because he is such just an excitable person. So yeah, he does.
So how long have you been there now?
So finishing up, well, this is my second full year. July is when I was officially started. So
well, what has surprised you about the role?
What a lot has surprised me.
Tell me a couple of things.
I think first and foremost, I guess I'm just surprised that it feels so natural. Sometimes, I really didn't expect it to. I felt like it would take me a lot longer to fit into the role, and so many qualities of a principal I felt like I didn't have or I struggled with a lot. I hate talking on the phone to people. I literally would get anxiety placing an online phone call to place an order for pizza. I have to call people every day now. So I quickly had to overcome that. Confrontation in general, I will ignore it. I won't let anyone know that something is bothering me. I won't address it. I obviously have to have hard conversations with people all the time, with parents, with teachers. And I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but I will say at this point, I definitely am way more comfortable with it than I ever thought that I would be. And so I guess I've just seen a lot of personal growth in areas that I didn't think that I would ever, for 30 plus years, I had been stuck in that one, like, okay, this is just how I am. I'm never going to get over this. And now, I feel a lot more comfortable doing that. So the amount of personal growth has been, I guess, pretty shocking.
And I think that's what leadership does, especially for those who have been leaders of an organization. They can resonate with it. It exposes so much about who you are, and you see it reveals yourself.
Yeah.
In many ways. I mean, would you say that applies to you? Like you saw things in yourself that you did not know were there?
Certainly. And I think leadership roles cause you to have to bring yourself to a higher level of yourself, or like the best version of yourself. As a teacher, yes, there's leadership positions and things and such like that, but it just kind of makes you be like, okay, like, everyone else is watching me, or you're much more in the eyes of other people. So that, I think it just brings out some of the best versions of yourself. And not all the time. I think sometimes too. Leadership can bring out, the other side of me as well. There's a lot more stresses and stuff, but I think that's where you just really have to work on that.
I took a leadership seminar once. This is about 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember the thesis of the instructor who was leading this particular portion of the workshop. He says, to become a leader is to become yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And he says, we worry so much about technique and methodology, and some of that is good. I mean, it's good to be coached, but the best leaders are those who lead as themselves.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
In all their vulnerability too, and not just always the great presentation, but a great leader is someone who could say, I don't really know what to do right now.
You have to be super vulnerable, or even to be able to have to apologize for, like, I didn't handle that situation well. I had to do that to some students just the other week. I went in and I kind of went off on them a little bit, and an hour or so passed, and I was like, man, I did not handle that well. So I went in and I was like, I need to talk to you guys. Like, I'm really sorry. I did not handle that situation well. But there was a lot going on, and, it needed to be addressed. That was not how it should have been addressed, but can you understand my frustration? Next time I will make sure that I do this and that. And so, you definitely have to be humble enough to be like, I did not do that correctly.
And you've got hundreds of, if you include the teachers, the parents, the children, the extended family. I mean, there are hundreds of people who look to you, to lead them. What excites you the most about what you're doing? I mean, like when you're doing it, like, this is great. I am energized by this.
Yeah. I think just, I didn't know too much about St. Michael's past or history or anything before I came to it. And obviously COVID impacted it a lot. And so when I was first hired, we were really small. We had a lot of struggles. We had a lot of obstacles to overcome. There was a lot of history there. And so I think one of the things that excites me the most is just seeing all of the change and the growth that's happening, and really the community that we're building here. I'm very serious when I say that I love coming to school every day. I still hate getting up early in the morning, and it's still a hard drive sometimes, but once I'm here, I do love all of my staff. We have an incredible staff. They work very well together. They are so self-sacrificing of their own time to each other. We have an amazing students. It doesn't mean they're all perfect, but they, each individually, I mean, they're all children of God. So that in their own right, they're all beautiful. I think just seeing how much we've evolved, and only in 2 years, I just am so proud of this community and how much they have come together. And even our relationship with the church, that has been amazing. That was one of Father Rossi's initiatives when I was first hired. It was only kind of really 2 stipulations, like, okay, we're going to do classical education. That's one thing. And we have to work really hard to build this relationship between the church and the school. And I said, okay, how do we do that? Let's go. And so that has been really beautiful. And just that every single day is something new. I mean, even if I had to plan out my whole day to a T, it would not go that way, which to some people stresses them out. And at the end of the day, sometimes it does. I said that I would do X, Y, and Z, and I didn't do that because I was doing A, B, and C, but it's, there's another day and it'll get done. But just how dynamic the job is, from actually doing administrative duties to, there's one time where a pre-K'er was having a really tough day, and I ended up being the one having to console him, but I also had to meet with the middle school team. So there I am sitting in the teacher's lounge, talking with the middle school team, holding a 3-year-old, that's sleeping in my arms. I was like, this is not what I would think that a principal would be doing. So, but I love it. It's very dynamic.
When you look back over your second year, what is one of your proudest accomplishments that you saw the school achieve?
Oh, proudest accomplishments that the school has achieved. I think I'm very proud of how we are a school community that truly embraces our Catholic culture, and we make that a priority for us.
Like, give us an example. Some people may not know this.
Every first Friday, we don't do any sort of academic, like the whole school day is rearranged, and we focus that on the the dedication to Jesus' Sacred Heart. We go to Mass in the morning. All the students go to adoration at some point in the day. We've worked with a team of parents who set up different activities. And they have, their rosary snack. They pair up with another grade level. We have had over half the time we've partnered with Belmont Abbey sports teams. They've come over and done skills and drills. And so for being our first year and just getting it off the ground, it's been great. We definitely have a lot of plans for next year already and how we're really going to enhance it. I think in this first year, and we talked a lot about this, is that we just wanted the kids to know that, hey, First Friday is a special day. Do they know all of the promises of the Sacred Heart and everything that they get out of First Friday? Maybe not right now, but that's what we're going to start leading up to. Like, okay, like they know that this is a day of celebration. They know this is a special day. And then next year we're going to start getting into like the nitty gritty of like, okay, but like, why is this so special? And why do we take an entire day and we don't do tests or quizzes or, anything else, and we only dedicate it to going to Mass and going to adoration and saying the Divine Mercy Chaplet at the end of the day and just missing 15 minutes like why do we do this? So I think that's a huge thing. We've started to try to say the Patriotic Rosary the first Wednesday of every month. I kind of found it randomly, but it was so beautiful. Like, it brought tears to my eyes. And if you've never prayed the Patriotic Rosary, go find it. Just the words of our forefathers in it, like talking about America back then and how just eerily it relates to everything that's going on now, and just seeing, how important their Christian faith was to them. It's so powerful. America truly was founded to be a Christian nation, and so to pray for that continuously is important.
Well, isn't the primary job of the parish school it's basically to make Catholics?
Yeah,
it's catechism.
It is, which is why our transition to Catholic liberal education is so important. We are still going to obviously have all the core subjects. We still have math and language arts. We're going to start Latin next year. We have science and history, but all of it is just now going to be more imbued with that Catholic faith. Still have a religion class section of the day, but hopefully too, they will in their other subjects be able to relate, what they're learning in math to their Catholic faith, what they're learning in science to their Catholic faith. It's almost just kind of like putting a lens over everything that they're learning. It's still very enriching material, still curriculum that is produced by some of the greatest, education, companies out there. It just has that lens over it, which is really, really beautiful. So I think that is the thing that I'm most proud of, and how a lot of the staff has embraced that. I know it can be scary, thinking, oh my goodness, we're wasting so much instructional time. Like every Friday I could be giving a test, or I could be doing this, and it's wasting academics, but it's not.
No.
Like I think that, the first and foremost, like you said, the salvation of their souls is what we're ultimately looking for. They can know every piece of information in the world, but if they don't have that relationship with God, and if they don't, if we don't prepare their soul for heaven, then what is the point of knowing everything? And I think too, even in the classical liberal education, is teaching them that some of the greatest thinkers in the world knew that. Like that's what they knew, is that you can know everything in the world, but if you don't have a relationship with God, or that everything that we know is a truth that comes from God. So, we have to teach our children that.
Well, it's almost like from a Christian Catholic standpoint, it'd be like Paul, without love, it is nothing.
Yeah.
Without love, it is nothing. It's just a noisy gong.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the over the past year, and I've seen some incredible things happening as well. Like, this is such a Catholic school.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Catholic. Looking ahead to next year, what is exciting you? I mean, what are your dreams for next year? Very briefly, you may have 12, but just give me one or two.
Father Austin and I are playing around with the idea of daily mass. Again, this is a parish school, so it's the relationship between the parish and the school, and, really the details behind making that work. But the fact that we're talking about it, that very much excites me. I think just our continued relationship with Belmont Abbey and working with them, they are such an integral part of our history as well, which, it would be a whole nother podcast to go into. So that excites me. I think too, just for our students, just as we grow in number, our sports, honestly, too, I think is exciting. We didn't really have sports the first year. We did, but it was very, few. And this year we've had a lot more. And we have Coach Eddie Sedaris, who is an amazing asset and is so great with working with these students and even helping them to see how like physical fitness and sports and stuff, and even that relates to God, and getting our students excited about that. So us, having more sports teams and being able to see our kids be athletic and play, in these sports and know the meaning of team. I think we've had a lot of conversations about that, about how I think kids have forgotten how to be a part of a team. We have such a selfish culture, and they only focus on themselves. Even just as simple as like, I don't feel like going to practice today, so I'm not. Like, no, you're a part of a team. You don't get to just choose whether or not you go to practice. Like, you have to be there. You have to be dedicated. So I think even having that there's so much for them to learn. With that, this doesn't really have anything to do with school, but I think we're going to start First Saturdays at St. Michael.
And I did not know that First Saturday is actually a part of the promises that you have to do First Saturday as well.
Yes.
It's not just First Friday. I did not know that.
Yeah, so I was invited by Mary Thierfelder to be a part of a First Saturday Fatima book study. So my mom and I did that, and after that, I was like, how do we not have this here? Like, I don't understand how every church in the entire world, like after all of these, apparitions and visits and all of these, requests by Our Lady, like how this is not in every church. So I'm excited for that. And again, I think it will be a very good part, because it is. First Fridays are incomplete without that first Saturday. So, even though it happens on Saturday, I have very little control over, what families or students, but hoping as we continue this devotion that they will understand the importance of it, and we'll start seeing that. So I think that is what I'm really excited about as well.
I think it was this is may off the wall. Like Thomas Aquinas said something along the lines that something is becoming more perfect the more it aligns with its design.
Yeah.
And what I love hearing from you is that the parish school was designed to be thoroughly Catholic,
Yeah.
and it's becoming more and more what it was designed to be.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
It just, and I don't know, we've just had so many blessings this year, and I just can't help but to think it's because, you know, we are surrendering our school to God's will. Like, our school is here to build up his kingdom. Our school is here to, you know, to help these students grow in virtue and have that relationship with God. And so, you know, we're not here to have 1,000 students. We're not here, you know, to make $1 million. We are here, and we're here for these, to help these families to educate their children. And I think that's a huge direction in which the school is going, which I'm so proud of, is we are recognizing that parents are the first educators. So it's not, hey, give us your kids and let us, you know, do the work. It's, we need your help. Work with us. You know, what do you want to see us doing? Parents' opinions are so important to me. I try to do surveys as often as I can before I make decisions, because I want to know if this is something that's important to them. Because they're the ultimately the first educators of their children. So having that close partnership with the parents is so very important. But, you know, as parents, that should be their first goal for their children as well. Not, I want them to, you know, get into the best college, and I want them to, you know, go play in the National Soccer League. It should be, I want them to get into heaven. So, you know, helping parents remember that, like, okay, you know, they got a C, but guess what? They've also been showing the virtue of honesty so well this quarter, and we're so proud of how they've been doing that. You know, hey, they didn't make the final score in soccer, but guess what? They show extremely good sportsmanship, and, you know, they prayed with their team after they lost. That is beautiful to us. So I think just reminding the parents, you know, because it's easy to get caught up in that, I'm sure, that, hey, ultimately your desire and our desire for your children should be to get to heaven, and everything else along the way is, you know,
secondary.
It is, you know, it can be celebrated, of course, but we need to make sure that we're forming your children into disciples of Christ.
And the school is clearly doing that. I have one last question
Sure.
for you.
Shoot.
What's the funniest thing that's happened to you? 2 years as a principal, you're the leader. Everybody's eyes are on you. You got a funny story for us before we sign off?
I am trying to think. I cannot. I'm a funny story. I really can't think of one. I'm sure there is something. It's like one of those things where you know that funny things have happened.
Sure.
But like,
You bring your dog.
I do. We tried to have her in here. She's a mouth breather, so that didn't work out very well. Yeah, she's fun. She came a lot last year because of COVID, and the school was kind of quiet, and this year we're so much more busy. So I don't get to bring her very often, but when I do, the kids love her.
What kind of dog is she?
She's a half Frenchie, half pug, so I call her Frug. She's about 11 years old. She's an old lady, but she loves the kids. She really does. And probably about a month ago, I went outside, and the kindergartners are all starting to read now. So they have their little books, and they can read their little sight words. And so Jem and I took 2 out at a time, and we went and sat on a bench outside, and they all read. They love reading. They were reading to Gemma, not me. Uh-huh. So they were reading their books to Gemma. And so that was just like super cute to me. They absolutely love her. But yeah, no, funniest thing. I don't know. Funny things happen all the time. I'll come back to you. We'll open the next podcast with that, because I know as soon as I end, I'll think of 1,000.
Well, let's end. And if somebody wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Sure.
Just tell everybody the website and
how
to research the school.
We got a new domain, which is so much easier. So it is stmcsg.org. The website is newly renovated and updated, so it is beautiful, easily navigatable, if that's a word. Yep. Easy to navigate. So they can visit that. We have an Instagram, which I believe is smcs_tigers, but it's also connected to our website. My email is mdvollman again, stmcsg.org. But honestly, they could call the school as well. All the information is found on the website. But really, the best way I love when people walk in and like just
because you said you don't like the phone.
Yeah, I do. I don't. I mean, I'll talk to you on the phone, but I love when people just walk in and be like, even if I'm not available at that moment, I will try to make myself available, or just walk in to schedule a time to meet with me. I do have monthly coffee and rosary with the principal. That is published on our website as well. And I do that as an opportunity for school parents to come meet with me. I believe we put it in the bulletin, but just that is a time. It's one Friday a month. For people to just come in and, pray the rosary with me, have some coffee, and then, whatever's on your mind. If you're a potential parent and you want to ask me all about the school, great. If you're a current parent and you have some concerns, or you want to tell me how awesome something's going, great. But I think that's just a very special time. I block it out. Like, my attention's going to be on you. And we pray for our school and any other intentions that they may have. You could always call the front desk. We do tours. We do shadow days for kids. So the kids who are looking to come to St. Michael can be paired up with another student of the grade level they'd be going into and see what it's like for the day. So yeah, our door is literally always open for the most part. So just come on in and see what we're about. But we're very open to people coming.
Well, you should be proud of what's happening, and all
you.
the people here listening that are parishioners here at St. Michael should be proud of what's happening at the school. It's really incredible what's going on.
We couldn't do it without their support, honestly, without their support and their generosity, of giving, because they do, support student tuition of the students from St. Michael. So really I should be thanking them, because without their support, their giving, their prayers, I know that our school wouldn't be where it is today. So, they're the ones that deserve praise.
Praise God.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Principal Vollman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I look forward to being on here again soon, hopefully.
And if you want to reach me, Shane Page, you can reach me at the website. Our website is stmccg.org, and you'll find my email there. On behalf of Father Rossi and all the people of St. Michael, thank you for listening to Might. See you next time.